there's no physical reason to need to, or in the summertime, you only need them so it doesn't actually hurt your feet. Just like walking barefoot, nobody wants to walk barefoot here on the sidewalk. Same thing, keeping the testes at the right temperature. We also have, of course, the vas deferens coming up from the scrotum to the core of the body, and we have the cremaster muscle. The cremaster muscle is what moves the scrotum up and down. So we have two muscles that help us to keep the right temperature. So the cremaster muscles in the spermatic cord. So if it gets hot, it relaxes, dropping the testis further away from the body, the scrotum further away from the body, so there's more air circulation to cool things off. If it gets cold, they're going to contract, pulling the testis closer to the body. Also, when the male is sexually aroused, it's going to pull the testis closer to the body, less damage opportunities there, right? Right, nothing ruins the mood like damage. Okay, so we want to pull them up and out of the way. So that cremaster muscle and the spermatic cord is going to help with balancing temperature and keeping them in the right location. We also have the dartos muscle, which is found in the scrotum itself. And when it contracts, it pulls the testis to the center of the scrotum, helping them warm up. And it creates wrinkles of the scrotum, kind of like darts on a shirt, which is how it got its name, the dartos muscle, because like darts on a woman's shirt to accentuate boobage. It's going to help pull them in. Whenever the testis get too hot, the dartos muscle relaxes, dropping the sac out a little bit more so the wrinkles go away. So again, when it gets cold, the cremaster muscles should contract, the dartos muscles should contract, everybody gets close to the body to warm up. When it gets hot, everybody relaxes, drops for circulation. So very important muscles to help regulate temperature. So we can have the right temperature for sperm production. If the degrees are off, then sperm aren't going to survive, and then the male's useless as a male because he can't impregnate a female if his sperms are dead.
Do you know that the dartos and the...
So the cremaster, they don't show it, but it's up higher in the spermatic cord. They also don't show the dartos muscle because they skin too strong. But it'd be right under the skin. So it'd be on the outside of that sac-ish structure.
So that would be like work sessions, you said?
Yeah, I can't point to them. I even took them off of Victor so we could at least see the stuff. If the muscles are intact, you can't see anything underneath them. But if he works tomorrow, we can play with that and we can find his cremaster muscle and his dartos muscle. If you're excited about that.
Now it's gonna look weird if we stay for that one.
So figure 42.3 is a cross section. Yeah, you don't need to see it like that. We've already got it on the picture. Figure 42.4 and 42.5, those are slides, and you know how I feel about slides. Okay, 42.6 is disturbing, or if you're going to be a gynecologist, that's your life. Question yourself, right? Sure, there's one driving around by West Campus. I saw a car drive by with a giant SM license plate. It's got to. Who else would want to have that on their
Oh,
That's out
God.
of there.
I bet nobody steals that car. Like,
The
oh,
reproductive
no one
system.
steal my expensive car.
Ladies,
Nobody
We
will.
got about 4 more.
ladies,
So we're
guys.
42.6. 42.7 is
The
the
guys.
female, and she looks shy. Weird. I think it's a different one for the backside. So again, the primary sex organ in females
It is,
are
yes.
ovaries. So the ovaries are going to make the estrogen and progesterone. The ovaries are going to make the eggs. So without functioning ovaries, you can't be a female for the reproductive system. Picture A, free edge. You do not have to know the uteral sacral ligament. You do not have to know the rectouteral pouch. You do not have to know the posterior fornix. You do not have to know the
Posterior
inferior
fornix.
fornix.
Interior fornix.
Spiral side. You do not have to know the vestibulo-uterine pouch. It's about in the middle there.
Testicular uterine pouch.
Now, the greater vestibular gland, that's the same as the Bartlett's gland. We will talk about that little guy in lecture, but he's not on our model, so I can't point to him. So the Bartlett's gland, greater vestibular gland, it's homologous to the Cowper's gland, so it does the same thing, about the same location. Now, the difference is for the Cowper's gland, or vulvourethral gland, that is the smallest gland the male has, and it doesn't produce a lot of fluid. Within the female, the greater vestibular gland, or Bartlett's gland, is the largest gland that we have. So our biggest fluid producing gland is the same size as the male's smallest producing fluid gland. So it's just there to help lubricate so nobody gets stuck on entry point. Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of mythology with this gland and female junk in general. One, it's a little weird. It produces PSA. Thinking that's what it's producing. I can double check that when we get prostate gland. So it's weird because it's not related to the prostate gland. Females never make a prostate gland. It disintegrates once they commit to being female.
Females.
But this chemical that was originally only associated with the prostate gland has been found to make trace amounts from the Bartlett's gland. So it's a little weird that you have this gland producing a chemical that it shouldn't be able to, which confuses people even to this day. So we don't have a prostate gland. Ours, again, is the equivalent of the Cowper's gland, but it can produce some of the stuff that the prostate produces. Not all of it, not the good stuff, just this little crappy guy. The other issue is, again, you often hear about female ejaculation, which is not a thing. Okay? Females can't ejaculate because we're not males, and we don't have ejaculatory ducts, we don't have the prostate gland, we don't have the seminal vesicle, we don't have the stuff to make ejaculate. And there's no reason for female. Males make ejaculate to carry sperm to destination. It would wash away sperm, that'd be counterproductive. So anytime you hear of a female ejaculating, whether it's in porn or some rumors that you've heard somewhere, one, no, we can't do that. That's not a thing females do. It's either pee, because unfortunately the urethra is right next door to the urinary bladder, and when you have an orgasm, sometimes the external sphincter relaxes, and because of pressure changes, urine is going to come out. So if you squirt when you are excited, it's because you're peeing. It has nothing to do with the reproductive system. It's the urinary system oopsies on you. So that's where a lot of the wet spot comes from.
Just pissed on you,
urine.
bro.
Now, if it's not urine and you're watching porn, it's because they stocked the pond. It's the nicest way to say it. You can put hoses up in females and fill the uterus with fluid, and if she squeezes her uterus, all that fluid will rush out. So if you see a video with tons of fluid rushing out, they pump that uterus full, and then they squeezed it out.
Good
Okay,
lord.
so they faked it.
Special effects.
There should never be gallons worth. Even an ejaculation only has a couple of tablespoons, and that's more than a female could make fluid. So it's either pee or they're in the porn industry and they pumped it full of water to make it look like somebody's weird things. Okay? Females can't ejaculate, not they. They can pee on you. So now we've solved the mystery because you never thought about these things or have heard about these things.
I have never thought about those things.
And it's normal, sometimes
But
things
somehow I
like
knew.
relax. That's what Picture B, uterus without the butt cheeks in around it, so we rotated it over.
Oh my god.
Free side, you do not have to know the ovarian blood vessels. The broad ligament, and it's called the broad ligament because it's wide,
Wide,
not because it's
Because it's a
female.
girl.
Okay, so like from the 20s, it's a broad over here. It's because it's wide. Now there's three parts. One part holds the uterus, one part holds the ovary, one part holds the oviduct. We
Uterus,
don't care
ovary,
about the
oviduct.
one that's holding the ovary. So you can cross out the mesovarium. So the mesosalpinx is going to hold the uterine tube. The mesometrium, metrium always means uterus, so that holds the uterus. The mesovarium would hold the ovaries, and we don't care about that. It even has, it looks like the word ovary in it. So cross out that. You can cross out the uterine blood vessels. You can cross out the isthmus. You can cross out the uterosacral ligament. You can cross out the cardinal ligament or the transverse cervical ligament, whichever one you want to call it. You can cross out the lateral fornix. We don't care about any of the fornixes. Really. On the spiral side, under uterine tube, you can cross out ampulla. You can cross out isthmus. Continuing down, you can cross out the internal os. You can cross out the external os. And with cervical canal, you just call it the cervix of the uterus. Again, we've got the fundus of the uterus, the body of the uterus, and the cervix of the uterus. which is why on the stomach, we had to have of the stomach. So you just can't say fundus, you have to have fundus of the uterus, or I might think you're talking about your stomach again. Okay, so fundus of the uterus is the hump part, body of the uterus is the big portion of it, and the cervix of the uterus is the neck. Cervix just means neck in Latin.
Cervix means neck.
Cervix means neck. Now, when we look at the female, there are 4 main ligaments to help suspend the uterus and the ovaries and the oviduct in place so it doesn't fall over. If it falls over, it's called prolapse, and it can fall over and start growing on the rectum. It can fall forward and start growing on the bladder, and you have to cut the organ off and then re-stitch it. Or in severe cases, it could actually prolapse out, so the uterus can drop down the vagina and try to escape. So we have all these ligaments to suspend it and keep it in place, like puppet strings. So the 4 main ligaments that hold the female structures in place, we've got the broad ligament holding everybody. We've got the suspensory ligament that suspends the ovaries from up top like puppet strings. Unfortunately, we can't see the suspensory ligament on our model, so it's a wordy question. We've got the round ligament that's going to help tie down, like a tie down strap from the fundus to the forward portion.
Where the hell's the round
And then
ligament?
we've got the steering ligament that attaches the ovaries to the crack between the oviduct and the uterus. So those are the 4 ligaments that keep everybody together. Now, table 42.3 lists all the ligaments. It just separates them out. So we see ovarian, suspensory, round, and broad, but then it tells you the parts of, and then the cardinal one is just in uterosacral, just extras. So you don't care about those. 42.8 shows you the cross section of the uterine wall, which we see on the model, so we don't need a slide for that, so we don't care. 42.9 uterine tube slide, we don't care. And 42.10, we don't have a breast model. We used to have one. I swear the thing is from the 70s. It's made out of that same foam that disintegrates that they used to have in the 70s in chairs and stuff. And you just breathe wrong, it becomes dust.
It's the
So
milk
we have one
factory,
dusty boob somewhere that if you look at it, it crumbles. So we're not
The
gonna,
milk factory.
so we don't care about 42. We're ignoring that one. So the rest of the book becomes optional. And that's because the gametogenesis and meiosis and genetics, there's a handout online for that has all the information you have to know. So the rest of the book you don't have to look at unless you like color pictures and want more. So let's you 3 is showing you gametogenesis and the female ovarian cycles. So 43.1, 43.2, again, are in the handout, unless you want colored pictures. And then it just shows you some sperms. And then 43.5, again, there's pictures and information in the lab handouts online. But that's, you can look at this if you want to look at this. I will show you something similar in lecture when we get there. 43.6 shows you the ovary and stages of the ovarian cycle, which I will show you pictures of in lecture, and we don't care about the ovarian cycle for lab. I will actually show you 43.7, 43.8 in lecture. So again, most of those you can ignore unless you like color pictures. 44 is showing you the different stages of development. We will talk about development in lecture, but not for lab, so we are not going to concern ourselves with fetal development. So you can ignore all of 44 unless you want a picture, which I will show you most of these pictures in lecture when we get to the development chapter. And then 45 is the genetics. Again, the handout is good enough. This one goes into a little bit more detail if you want more detail. And it does show you a picture of the human genome, so karyotype. But again, all the stuff that's important is on the handouts online, so you don't have to worry about it. So 45, 44, and 43, you never have to look at again unless you just feel the need to look at color. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay. So we're going to look at part parts on what we would see on the anatomy. We only have 3 models, so we've got the pregnant chick, we've got the guy model. I prefer the models that are not the ones with flesh sheets.
Okay.
So we've got this Squidward looking model that's over there, and there's more of them in the cabinet. and there should be some uteri up there.
Uteri.
I can tell off of the little tracks.
So
Hopefully
guide
they're up
model.
there, if not,
No
I'll
butt
just-
cheeks.
Might also, so. So we got the guy model, the girl model, and the competition. With that. So here's Victoria, because obviously Victor is not going to have a uterus.
Oh, that's the uterus. Okay.
I'll try not to let you do a little bit. Good enough? So it does look like it's about to take a dive off of it. I know. So here's from the side shot. Here is the round ligament. So one of the things that's kind of hard to see in the picture is there's two round ligaments, a left and a right side. So both are going to tie down to the labia majora. The left labia majora has the left one, the right labia majora has the right one. So the way your book draws it, it looks like there's just a single one, but there's actually two of them coming off. And we can see them on our model. We're going to have the suspensory ligament that's going to suspend the ovary. Very ligament holding the ovary in place. I've kind of chopped off some stuff so we can see. There's the uterus. Okay, that's the bladder. So the big chunk of this guy is actually bladder, not uterus. Uterus are kind of small. And there's your vagina behind the urethra. And they've left the labia majora and labia minora, which look even worse without skin than they did with the skin. And there's the Bartlett's gland hanging out right there. So, this is our view. Okay? So he's kind of tilted from the normal position. But here, of course, we can see the testis. We can see the epididymis sitting on the outside, and there's the vas deferens coming in as a part of the spermatic cord, so on either side. And then we dump in and join up with the common ejaculatory duct, so the seminal vesicle right here, and they're going to dump into the prostatic urethra. The prostate wraps around it, so it's kind of hard to see. There's our little membranous urethra, and the penile urethra is going to be in the middle of the corpus spongiosum right here, and these are the two corpus cavernosa. So there's two of those, and one spongiosum, so like two eyes and a mouth kind of thing. And then of course the glans penis right here. Okay. A little bit over so you can kind of see things and color coordinated. So we've got the seminal vesicles and the vas deferens joined in the common ejaculatory duct from either side, and that dumps into the prostatic urethra. We have the prostate gland wrapping around the prostatic urethra. The ovourethral glands or Cowper's glands are going to dump into the membranous urethra right below the external urethral sphincter, and then we're going to go out through the penile urethra, which is covered up by these little connective tissues. So we have the corpus cavernosa and the corpus spongiosum surrounding the penile urethra and the glans penis right here. So we can see the testis and the epididymis, and of course the vas deferens from either side. Same thing, this is just a back shot instead of a front shot. So we can still see the seminal vesicles and the vas deferens join to form the common ejaculatory duct, and then the prostate gland dumps into that prostatic urethra, and the common ejaculatory duct dumps into the prostatic urethra. And then we go down through the membranous urethra, the vulvourethral glands dump into that right below the sphincter, and then they're going to travel down through the corpus spongiosum. And the penile urethra is going to exit, of course, at the end of the glans penis. Testis, epididymis hanging out. Okay. There she is again, just disappeared. So this is a front shot, so you can see the fundus of the uterus. You can see the suspensory ligament holding up the ovaries. The ovaries are actually kind of buried within that ovarian ligament, so they're not very big structures. And then, of course, we've got the fallopian tube coming into the uterus. So this is right here. And this is the vagina, kind of like a worn-out sock. There's her round ligaments tying down to each of the labia majora. And we have the labia minora, and then the clitoris that's made by the hood of the labia minora that comes in. Always think of that. The evil Kermit. I've seen the good
Yeah.
Kermit and evil Kermit. He's like, that's clitoris, my big evil Kermit right there. And of course, the Bartlett's gland would pop into the back side of the vagina, which we really can't see real well. Right. Here I've highlighted the clitoris so you can find it easier. Oh, if only that was an option, right? So again, the head of the clitoris or the prepuce is the only part that's on the outside of the body. The rest of it wraps into towards the vagina coming in. So most of your G-spot orgasms are actually just the backside of the clitoris. And the clitoris is essentially the same thing as the penis, except it's smaller and internal. So you actually have all the same erectile tissue, corpora cavernosum, in the clitoris that you have in the penis. It's just obviously notably smaller and internal. So just like a male can stimulate the backside of his penis and get an erection and get an orgasm through anal activity, females get a G-spot orgasm, which is essentially backdoor action for the clitoris. So 9 out of 10, well, about 80% of all orgasms come from the clitoris because that's the female penis. So of course, that's what guys use to get theirs, so that's what girls use to get theirs. Now you can stimulate orgasms elsewhere in guys, just like you can in girls, which is a little bit harder to do. So vaginal orgasms is like 5%. Some people get it if you touch their cervix. You never had a patch here, I don't see how that's comfortable, but hey, some people, everybody. So we've got the uterus, we've got the suspensory ligament holding the ovaries in place. The left ovary is kind of buried in there. This is the broad ligament, quite broad, quite big, holding everybody in place, and of course the fallopian. Okay, same thing, I've just cut her in half. So you can see the uterus, the fundus of the uterus, body of the uterus, cervix of the uterus, and you can actually see the endometrial lining, myometrium, periometrium, makes the fallopian tube kind of stick out a little bit easier. And there's that suspensory ligament and the broad ligament keeping everybody together in the vagina. And the clitoris, the labia majora, the labia minora. That's it. Anybody,
No.